A Towerful of Mice may be the perfect RPG side quest. The Witcher 3 is filled with great and meaningful quests, but a lot of them are fairly simple and are elevated because the writing team at CDPR is just so good. But Towerful of Mice is substantial, and it takes so many disparate strengths that The Witcher 3 showcases throughout its runtime and coalesces them into this incredible whole. And now it's time to coalesce my thoughts into an analysis as I analyze A Towerful of Mice. This quest begins with Geralt doing the invitation from Keira Met's quest first, where Keira asks for Geralt's help in dealing with the curse that is ravaging Fyke Isle. Geralt takes a boat over to this creepy island and battles it out with some necrophages before arriving at the titular tower. This tower is not just full of mice, but also spirits, some of which you just listen to them as they vent, and then one, Annabelle, who met an absolutely horrible fate at the hands of the rats that this tower is so full of. At this point, she asks Geralt to take her bones to her lover Graham in a nearby village, and Geralt can choose to do so, or choose that he doesn't trust Annabelle. The quest ends with Geralt reporting to Keira Metz, which furthers Keira's questline. Now, there are a ton of things that make A Towerful of Mice an incredible quest, but to start with, let's look at how you actually receive the quest.
The Cursed Isle on Lake Windammer. You've heard of it, I'm sure. So, will you please help me lift this curse? You're so good at these things.
Okay, so I purposely cut out all the useful dialogue here to make a point. That is, this is how I feel a lot of RPG side quests play out. A character just assumes that the protagonist will be able to help with God knows what, and doesn't hesitate to burden them with their requests, and that always feels so video gamey. But why it works so well in Towerful of Mice is you know Keira really well at this point. To even get to this quest, you have to have completed 2 main quests with her, Hunting a Witch and Wandering in the Dark, where you got to interact with her and build a rapport. Keira has her own quirks and motivations, which I won't dive into too much here, but her role in those quests was to help Geralt follow some leads on finding Ciri. This investigation happened to coincide with her searching for a magic lamp, and concluded with her telling Geralt to drop by her home sometime. So when you get to her place and she asks you to do this little side excursion, you kind of feel obligated because she helped you during the main quest. And while Towerful of Mice does its own thing, there are hints of larger plot threads at play here. Take the mage Alexander. This tower is filled with rats, hence the title of the quest, and the various spirits Geralt encounters give him more information on what the mage was doing with those rats.
They said he lured rats into the tower, infected them with the Catriona.
They seem sluggish to you. Got the mange, maybe?
This is interesting, but other than being flavorful world building, the bits about the Catriona Plague don't seem relevant beyond this quest right now, because we're so focused on the rats and less so on what Alexander was up to. But if you dig a little deeper, Alexander and his work is connected in many ways with Keira Metz. In fact, she outright states that she knew him.
Where is he now?
We were friends. Sadly, he died that day as well. Oh, Alexander was one of those anxious experimenters, forever short on sleep. The kind that thinks perfect happiness is an isolated tower and a full set of vials and alembics.
So there's something more going on here, but as usual with Keira, you can't tell if she's being honest. What you can tell is she is very interested in Alexander's laboratory once Geralt is in the tower.
Where are you? Have you got to the laboratory at the top of the tower yet?
So it shouldn't come as any surprise that when reporting to Keira after this quest, she mentions how much she hoped to study Alexander's notes. And before you even talk to Keira for the first time in Hunting a Witch, you can find a note where she's begging Alexander for access to his research. Now, this doesn't pay off at all during Towerful of Mice. It's only after this quest that that foreshadowing comes to fruition. But I'm still really impressed by how elegantly they managed to make Towerful of Mice feel like this key cog in Keira Metz's story arc. But her arc is for a later video. Let's talk about what makes this quest special, starting with the story it tells.
The Cursed Isle on Lake Windammer. You've heard of it, I'm sure. The local peasants mumble incessantly about it, about the wraiths that haunt it. They claim none who go there return. The curse is somehow linked to the tower where Serard, the lord of these lands, took refuge when Nilfgaard invaded. Claims in the village are that peasants, desperate of hunger, sailed to Fyke Isle to beg for food. Met their end there. It was a massacre.
That's a good story. The only problem is it's a bit of bullshit. That's not Keira's fault. She heard some rumors and she's relaying them to Geralt. She doesn't actually know what happened there. No one does because everyone who was there died. Geralt starts to piece things together though using that fancy magic lamp he got from Keira, and things were way more grim.
They're onto us. They're not letting Graham in.
Quiet, fool. Babylon and the noble himself will hear you.
Nah, he sat his arse on silk pillows, likely be gobbling meat. With no notion he's coming to tear him to shreds.
Graham later confirms this version of events where the peasants were not innocently coming for food and money, but to kill Viserys and his family. And this reveal upends expectations right away in this quest because it's no longer a straightforward rich elitist jerk is also a monster kind of story. No, this story now feels far more sinister, far more depraved, and honestly far more human, as ugly as it is. And that ugliness is at full force when you meet Annabelle, Viserys' daughter, at the top of the tower and speak to her through Kira's lamp. Annabelle is a tragic figure and her spirit is extremely restless.
They're all dead. Mountains of corpses, yet I stand here alone, all alone. Why can't I leave this place?
Tell me what happened here. Peasants sailed to the island to ask for food. Is that true?
No. They came to rob and kill. They thought us rich, believed we'd stowed ourselves away here to laugh at their misery. They slaughtered everyone.
This is all super bleak, but what elevates this story to classic status is the manner in which Annabelle dies. So do you remember how Alexander was experimenting on rats with the Catriona plague? And do you remember how this quest is called a Towerful of Mice? And do you remember how this quest analysis is called Witcher 3 Quest Analysis, a Towerful of Mice? Well, that tower has to fill with mice somehow. Well, what happened was those peasants who found the rats in the basement of the tower actually released them, something that Alexander unfortunately didn't know when he tried to save Annabelle from the murderous mob.
He gave me a potion. If I was discovered, I was to drink it. My beloved Graham. He called to me. I opened the door for him, but others rushed in. They lunged at me and...
Did they hurt you?
They gripped my arms, tore at my dress. I managed to free myself and drink the potion, and then... nothing.
Poisoned? That how you died?
No, for I later awoke. I was alone, it was dark. Only there were rats everywhere. Dozens. Hundreds. And I couldn't move. My face, my hands. I felt them rip open my skin, then crawl into my stomach. They tore me apart, and I could not even scream.
You couldn't scream? I mean, that's kind of funny, because my reaction when playing this was, "Ah!" No wonder her spirit is so restless. This is about as awful a fate as I could imagine. But thankfully, there is a love story included in this quest. Because you remember Graham, the guy who the other peasants used to try to break into the tower? Turns out he was Annabelle's lover and that her father didn't approve of this lowly peasant courting his daughter. But Graham never had any intention to hurt anyone when he brought the mob to Fyke Isle. In fact, his goal was solely to run away with Annabelle. But then things went haywire, the peasants got murderous, and before he knew it, Annabelle looked like she was dead. And it's a shock to him when Geralt tells him that she didn't in fact die from poisoning.
It wasn't poison. Annabelle drank a strong sleeping potion. Mage wanted to protect her, make it look like she was dead.
Gods, what have I done? If I had stayed behind to bury her, I'd have noticed she was alive. It might have ended different, ended well.
If you'd stayed on the island, I doubt you'd have survived.
I'd take death over leaving her to the rats like that.
But Spirit Annabelle doesn't know this part of the story. She spends a major part of her conversation with Geralt wondering why Graham didn't save her, and there's a lot of blame she's tossing around here. And Geralt realizes that their abruptly halted love is what is binding the curse to Fyke Isle. And it leads to one of the most difficult choices in the game, which is another reason this quest is so good.
I loved him. I'm prepared to forgive him. But I must know that he regrets what he did. Take my bones to him. He must bury them. This will be our farewell.
So there are several red flags here. For number one, Geralt is a Witcher. He probably should be figuring out the solution to this problem himself, rather than outsourcing the solution to this curse to the ghost that is cursed and that he's trying to remove the curse from. Number two, Geralt can catch her in a little bit of a lie.
I miss him so. Each night I walk to the island shore to gaze upon the village. Does he remember me still?
Said before you can't leave the tower.
Did I? You must have misheard.
And third red flag, if you'd played Ladies of the Wood already, does any good ever come from letting a spirit leave its prison?
I can be a girl, a gallop unchained. great mare. A horse fiend. Folk done went mad, lunged at each other, murdering all neighbors or young'uns.
Still, despite all of these red flags, you know what I did on my first playthrough? I took those bones and delivered them to Graham, and not 15 seconds later, he got slaughtered. And Annabelle turns out to be a pesta, as you can see in this terrifying shot, and she escapes to who knows where. And to top it off, the bestiary implies that this plague maiden is off spreading disease to other cities and wiping out their populations. Wow, that is a lot to process, and Geralt seems suitably disturbed by this.
She's a pesta, and now she's free.
It's tough to see Geralt this hysterical with grief. But while he's dealing with those emotions, let me explain my headspace when I opted to go against all good sense and take those bones from Fyke Isle. In short, Annabelle's sob story. Like, her story was so heartbreaking, so gut-wrenching, and just so tragic that the practical part of my brain just dissipated. It was all emotion at that point. And what can I say? I'm a complete sap. Like, I just felt like I had to save this girl.
Fine, I'll talk to Graham. Where will I find him?
He lives in the village on the lakeshore, yet... What if he's forgotten me?
If he loved you, he'll remember, and want to help.
He said he would always love me. Go to him. Make haste, please.
So I screwed up big time, but here's the thing about me. I'm not a Witcher. I'm just a lowly video game player. I cannot express how bad of a gaffe this is from Geralt. Thankfully, that's why we have Kira Metz.
I lifted the curse, so the island's clear. Annabelle's soul is free. Thing is, turned out she's a pesta. Graham's dead.
And you failed to notice. You're losing your touch.
But I love that the game lets you make this mistake, because it shows the player pretty early on that they need to be careful and think through their decisions. Now, thankfully, there is another option, though somehow I don't actually have footage of that choice. The many times I played this quest before doing this analysis, I always had an option to tell Annabelle I don't trust her, so I must have screwed something up in both of the playthroughs I'm doing for this video. But not to worry, you could just tell Annabelle you'll think on her offer of taking her bones to Graham, and then try to leave the tower. Then, just like the jilted lover who was eaten alive by rats that she is, she throws a bit of a fit.
What's with the door?
You wish to leave, as Graham did.
What do you want?
No more lies, no more deceit. You will stay here for all time. You will never leave.
And this ends up playing out the exact same way as if the decision had been available to me to distrust Annabelle. You fight and temporarily defeat this pesta, and Geralt realizes that it's Annabelle and Graham's love that binds his curse. And so he heads to Orton. There he talks to Graham and lets him know that the only thing that can break the curse on Fyke Isle is love, and it has to be true love or it won't work. Those pestas have great BS detectors after all. So Graham heads back to the tower with Geralt, and what ensues is beautiful, and that's no BS.
Is that?
It's me, Annabelle. The one you abandoned, remember?
I was sure you was dead. If I'd known otherwise, I'd never have left you. I'd do anything for you. I would. You know that well. Believe me, I beg you.
Prove it. Kiss me.
What follows is deftly handled, because in less capable hands, this scene could have been really hokey. But with CDPR at the helm, it works. This is beautiful stuff. It's like a really grim fairy tale, because it's heartwarming to see true love prevail over all the darkness and misery that we'd experienced throughout the quest, but it's still bittersweet because Graham essentially ends up making out with smallpox. And I feel for the guy, but he seems content to go out like this. It's important to remember that this guy felt guilty not just for Annabelle's suffering, but that he was also indirectly the cause of the entire slaughter at Fyke Isle. This is a man racked with guilt, and between the shrine he built for Annabelle in his shack and this noose that you probably missed when you went into that shack, I'm not sure how long for the world he was. And this way he gets laid to rest with his beloved Annabelle. This is absolutely the good ending to this quest, but I take back what I said earlier about there being no BS in this quest, because there is a little bit of BS, and that BS is Geralt doesn't make it clear to Graham what kind of danger he's in.
Take me to her, please.
It's dangerous. There are risks involved. Understand that, don't you?
Of course.
Kiss me.
Graham, careful.
Okay, Geralt's first warning there felt more like he was saying something like, hey man, just be careful, okay? Because she might ghost you. And not that, hey, she might kill you because she's an actual ghost. And when Geralt said careful when Annabelle told Graham to kiss her, I mean, like when I'm walking around in the city with my wife, I tell her to be careful when we're on the sidewalk and she's like in between me and the street like 4 feet away, and I'm just paranoid that she's gonna like tip over into the road and get hit by a car. Like, I don't think that communicates any danger whatsoever. It's just a mindless thing to say. In my opinion, there was probably some dialogue that got cut out just to keep it a surprise that Graham dies at the end, and while that works dramatically, it does come at the expense of Geralt as a character. But you know what? Maybe Geralt didn't tell Graham because he thought Graham would get the idea from how freaking oppressive the atmosphere is in Fyke Isle. And it's that atmosphere and the quest locale that is the final component that makes this quest so special. To start, you get to this quest by taking this moody boat ride through the swamps of Velen, which is bad enough. You can almost feel the mosquitoes buzzing around. But then the weather changes as you approach the land, and there's this palpable sense of isolation just as Geralt is arriving on the banks. It feels like he's entering into a nightmare. And sure, the enemies here are just bog standard necrophages that you find everywhere, but this area feels dangerous in a way that the bulk of the open world in The Witcher 3 just never matches. And then as you explore, that sense of danger feels more and more present as you communicate with those spirits I mentioned before. Their dialogue serves to fill in the story of this quest, but they also serve the purpose of evoking more of that oppressive atmosphere. And really, these little snippets essentially act as these de facto audio recordings, like the ones you'd get in BioShock.
Where's that noble? Lying here, quiet as a mouse, head split open like a rotted pumpkin. More like a peasant now, sloshing around in his own blood and shite. Be nothing noble about him.
And it's not just what you learn from these visions. This is a haunted tower after all. There's going to be some straight up spooky shenanigans happening, and there's plenty of that. Torches come on by themselves. There's this banging sound down in the basement. And perhaps my favorite, as Geralt walks towards the spirit in this room, there's this noise that sounds like the game glitching. But when you turn around and look, you can see this female spirit just standing there. And that spooky atmosphere permeates this entire quest thanks to the unique and riveting location. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel. And if you think you can get away with not liking and subscribing to my channel, well, let me leave you off with this little warning from Geralt.
Careful. It's dangerous. There are risks involved. Understand that, don't you?